Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Titan Business Builders. And I'm very excited for the episode of today because I'm here with a good friend of mine and almost, I would say, an icon in the world, in the media world for LGBTQ plus people and the community. I'm here with Matt Skallerud from Pink Media. And Pink Media is, I'm going to just read it from LinkedIn, Matt, is a marketing agency and you help companies reach the LGBTQ plus community using social media marketing and strategic online media placement. A mouthful. Welcome, Matt.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here with you.
Yeah, absolutely. We've met online, and
Yeah.
I think this is the greatest topic of today as well. It's all about how you really can use the power of being online to meet a lot of new people to create your network. And that's how we met as well.
Yeah.
And I love that aspect because since we've met online, we've created so many other connections and it keeps expanding and expanding and expanding and it's so cool to see that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is also where your story begins a little bit
Yeah.
for yourself with the company. Tell us a little bit what your thoughts are about that.
Yeah. I mean, how we got here today, it's been over 25 years. And back in the 90s, we started a gay website and it became one of the largest LGBT websites out there online. So we started in that train of, kind of creating a website, a portal, banner advertising and content. And having that start, and developing and growing it, it was called gaywire.com, and we sold it. We sold it in 2006. So ever since then, I wanted to kind of stay in the industry, but I was no longer restricted to my own websites. So that's essentially so then I was able to work with clients and companies to figure out, like, how do I target and reach LGBTQ people online. And then, of course, along the way, we've had mobile apps and video, and then, of course, social media, starting with MySpace, and now, through Facebook, and now today. And so all of those have been different technologies that have just sort of sprung about, or come about from the beginnings of the internet back, for most of us, about over 25 years ago.
Wow. I mean, that's quite a journey that you've gone through for sure. And
Yeah.
you've seen it from the first row almost, like the upcoming of Facebook and all of the other social media apps. If you look back at where you started out with the whole internet thing, let's say,
Yeah.
um, how was that perceived by a lot of people in the industry? Like, and
Yeah.
for you, like, how did you see the big opportunity there?
Yeah. Well, it's hard to imagine today, but well into, like, even the early 2000s. But I remember, in the late 90s, telling people, um, I'd say I'd say even Walmart is going to have a website. And of course, I'm not sure if everybody knows Walmart around the world, but it's one of the largest kind of retailers in the United States. But it was kind of a running joke because at the time they didn't have a website. But I told people the internet is so incredible with the opportunities that even Walmart will have one. Well, looking back, that was such a silly thing to say, because of course Walmart has a website, to compete with Amazon, and now we do all of our online banking, and so many technologies have really come about from just the internet. um, and even skipping ahead a little bit, I'm more excited today than I was even back then, because back then I could just see such immense possibilities as far as what could be done, because we were connected for the very first time, globally. But where we're at today, and over the last few years, now we're collaborating and sharing ideas and engaging with each other in a way that we were never able to do before. And that's because it kind of went from just being on the internet to this whole social media, and being engaged with others. And so when you see it through that lens or through that perspective, that's what shows, it makes it easy to know where the opportunities lie, but also kind of where things that people get excited about aren't quite as strong when it comes to people like you and me connecting and meeting and engaging with each other.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a fact for sure. And you within the LGBTQ plus community building that agency that helps other brands also connect with our community.
Yeah.
You've been doing that for many years now. Like I can imagine in the beginning, especially even when the internet was new and so on, and that it was even more challenging back then to help people with this. Am I
Yeah.
right? Or
Yeah. No, it was because back then they would even say there were always naysayers that would say they thought the internet was like a CB radio, and back then I was young, so I wouldn't argue with them. I would just go, well, if that's what you want, if that's what you think, and I would just move on. But today now it's what 27 years later, so I'm older and crankier. So now I don't want to I don't want to argue with people, but I don't let that slide because people nowadays also are wrestling with it. Change is difficult for folks. So the internet was a huge change for a lot of people, and especially those that were not comfortable with technology. But where we're at today is kind of that next big shift because not everybody really understands the power that's in there, even in their mobile phones and held in their hands. Um, but they want to understand it because they see that others, perhaps younger, do seem to grasp it quite well. So everybody wants to be a part of it. They just don't know exactly what they're asking to be a part of. I try to help with some of that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And yeah, for all these years of with your experience, you definitely know firsthand how to reach the people, how to use it. Yeah, and using the power of social media for sure, or the internet as a whole.
Yeah,
But let's go back to the beginning because the podcast is really also about how you started out as an entrepreneur. This is always a great thing to ask and to hear, like, how
yeah,
did you get started and how did you manage to keep it going as an entrepreneur and building it up until it's what it is right now? But where
yeah.
did it start? Were you always an entrepreneur?
Kind of. I mean, I was I had a corporate life once, and I got my degree in aerospace engineering. So here I
Wow.
was, a very different life and world. And I was working right away in a research and development lab for laser research. And so for some people, they thought that was a great career start, and like I would be in that forever. The truth was, I got bored. It was not that exciting for me to be kind of stuck in a lab and like I said, but it was a good job. But so then what I ended up doing was I moved to another company and I went into sales of what I was working on as an engineer. So I was willing, because I loved kind of talking to people about technology rather than just working on developing it. And so when the internet came along, um, I was comfortable with programming and technology and computers, which were kind of, of course, new at the time. And I knew how to go out there and tell people about it. So I decided to create something very, very new because I had dabbled in like entrepreneurial things, helping other people out with projects before. So I thought, I'm going to do this. So I created a website and I decided to do it for the LGBT community where I knew no one. I was starting from zero. And I thought that's going to be a really good challenge for me just to see like what happens. And I really thought it would just be kind of a fun hobby. But the reality was is that I was able to program and develop a website and then go tell people about it and start getting some of those first clients on board. And so that's what allowed me to succeed because I didn't have to be the best programmer. I didn't have to be the best salesperson, but I was able to do all those things and understood them. And so I was able to kind of, and since I was not afraid of getting out from behind the computer and talking to people,
Mm.
that really was kind of the key for being able to kind of grow the business. And that's what we did. We grew the business for years.
I think that's an awesome point that you made there. Like going out there and telling about what you do, but at the same time also understanding that this is like something that people want and need. And
Yeah.
if you can connect those two, it will become a success.
Yeah.
And that is great. That is great for everybody that's watching right now. Remember, keep talking to people about what you do. That's the best way to get them on board. And I see that we have a lot of people already joining in our live podcast here. And I want to say hi to everybody. And there are a couple of people that say that you look really good, Matt. So there you go.
I'll take that. That's awfully kind.
Adi is here. And we also have Ross Yerks here that was
Yes.
also on the
Yes.
podcast a couple of episodes ago. And he has a question. And I have another question from another viewer as well. But
Yeah.
let's start with the one from Ross. So, Matt, with all your experience across these years, what is your, let's say, top recommendation to building an audience on YouTube or
Oh,
other
on
yeah.
YouTube. YouTube is trickier for me because, and I will actually say that I don't have an immediate answer for that because when it comes to YouTube, we create videos, we post every. In fact, YouTube is like the main hub. We look at YouTube's power not only within YouTube itself, but because Google owns them, the search engine optimization is phenomenal. So So we try to always put a description in our videos that we know will work for Google, and all of that works. But I'm not an influencer. I'm not a celebrity. I'm actually, even though everybody's very kind to me today, I'm not that exciting in that sense. So when you compare what I'm producing, or for what most of us do, especially for business, and then compare that to what some of the top YouTube, gay or lesbian and transgender influencers are doing, it's a world of difference. And how they're building their following is because they're very focused on entertaining and really kind of building up that celebrity status. So I think YouTube is tricky to build a strong following, and I put most of my emphasis on building a following on Twitter and LinkedIn. And during this podcast, I can explain, I think, very easily why I do that.
Yeah, by all means, this is definitely a good topic to talk about
Yeah.
because we're all about educating business owners here also to
Yeah.
see how they can build their own business. So yeah, by all means.
Well, I mean, if it was up to, if we were just on Facebook, you and I probably wouldn't even know each other, because everybody always has to realize the power of Facebook is a silo. It's
Yeah.
you're constrained. The power is your personal profile. You have a maximum of 5,000 friends, colleagues, what have you, and that's your network. And Facebook's really, really good. It's like training wheels for most of us, where it allows people to really learn how to make those things work. They've got the business pages and they have groups, but they've never really made it so you can reach out to like friends of friends, or reach out to folks that you don't know in your business, because unless of course you pay them. If you pay them, you're able to kind of build that audience and do it. So, but again, Facebook's a great place to start. And of course, they own Instagram. Instagram's kind of a hybrid, but they're still not all that great unless you're really a great comedian or
Yeah.
storyteller. If you're able to kind of create a celebrity status, because with Instagram it's the same. Instead of 5,000, the maximum you can be following, or people that you can follow, is 7,500. So you have to succeed and get 100,000 followers. You need to be very entertaining, so that you get a lot more people following you than you are paying attention to. So that's like that environment. But on the others, when it comes to especially LinkedIn, where you and I had met, LinkedIn allows you, it's more powerful and it's more complicated, that newsfeed that we see, because it allows you to reach friends of friends. So you'll see posts of people that you're not connected to, but that your friends and colleagues have been engaged with. And it allows you to kind of have a broader reach, and to connect with and engage with people that you don't know, but that you would like to know. And the maximum you can connect with there is 30,000. So it's got a far, far greater um, uh, power when it comes to not only building an audience, getting the word out, but then also being able to network and share and engage with on these ideas.
Yeah, those are definitely good points. And I think Twitter is a bit the same
Yeah,
as LinkedIn, where you
it
also
is.
get,
Twitter is
yeah.
and Twitter's, unfortunately, like a lot of folks will say, all it is politics and screaming and this and that, but the reality, it's not. But I try not to overdo it, because I think I drive people crazy when it comes to talking about Twitter. But like, see, LinkedIn is its own thing, and it's fantastic. But when you look at Twitter, for Pride festivals especially, there are so many individuals and businesses and everything that are active, and they're not just posting on Facebook and Instagram. They're also posting on Twitter. And when they post on Twitter, the rest of the world can see that. And so, like with London Pride last weekend, there's just, there's got to be hundreds of thousands of posts. And so for me, and they're really good at being able to kind of crowdsource, which means they're not showing you everything. They're showing you things that other people that you're engaged with
Yeah.
liked as well. So you're able to reach friends of friends, and you're able to see posts from people you don't know, but you're able to see things from the LGBT community all around the world. And it's a great way to kind of, if you do it on a regular basis, just a few minutes a day, it really keeps you dialed in to whatever's of interest to you. If it's travel or LGBT business, whatever it is, that starts to show up in your Twitter feed, and you become very educated and connected and engaged right away.
Yeah, I can agree with that. If you follow specific topics, for example, on Twitter,
Yeah.
Twitter will automatically push more and more and more of that content, even from people that you don't know, that they think will be interesting. And then you start to follow more people, they start to follow you back. So it's definitely a
Yeah.
great platform. Now, there's another question that leads or that follows up with that is, there's a lot to do about how many times you should be posting, you should be creating content to
Yeah.
have an impact. And there's a lot of people out there saying, yeah, you have to post at least once a day or at least 3 times a day. Like, Matt, help us out here. What is the best way to reach and build an audience on social media? How many times do we really need to post?
Now I am going to sound like a cranky old man. I think if people don't have anything to say, they shouldn't speak.
Mm.
So what happens is that on social media, you're finding people forcing themselves to talk, or sometimes that's, some people just naturally, inherently just talk too much. I talk too much sometimes, but when it comes to social media, but when it comes to social, I don't. And what I mean by that is that I don't think anybody should force themselves to like post once or 3 times a day, because it makes you start to kind of throw things out there when you really
Mm.
don't have anything interesting or exciting to say. And then it also becomes a little bit spammy. It's kind of like, it's very clear that all you're doing is just, seeking attention. But if you post things, if you monitor, for you or for others, if you're monitoring content that is specific in your industry, and you see a really good article, and then you share it on Twitter and LinkedIn and even Facebook and so forth. But when you're sharing it on those two platforms, and you get it out there, you become more like a thought leader. And so you don't have to be posting about yourself. And in
Mm.
fact, I will say that the posts that do the best for me are the ones where I'm not talking about our company or talking about myself. If I post about other people, an audience will react to that more, because they like the fact that you're the one who's talking about someone else and their success, or their business and whatever, what have you. So when you do that and you're monitoring, then if you happen to get like 3 or 4 or 5 articles came in, then great. Like sometimes on LinkedIn, I'll post like 2, 3 or 4 articles in a day, and then sometimes I post nothing for a few days. So I really don't force. I don't force myself, and I don't think others should, to just be present every day, as much as it is important to really have good quality pieces that you're putting out there that are true to the niche that you're trying to be a part of.
Yeah, I really like that idea indeed, that it's not about the amount of times or forcing yourself. And that's a big one, forcing yourself to try to post every day, because you also want it to be almost natural. Because if you're forcing yourself, like with anything, you will not continue to do it, because it's not fun to force whatever.
Yeah,
And I think it's a good idea to also be a curator of content sometimes,
yeah,
and not having to come up with your own content all the time, because there's only so much content that can be created at a certain point, and it will be rehashed anyway.
yeah,
So why would you rehash it again?
yeah.
So just be the curator, point people to the right direction, and they will love you for that. That's for sure. Yeah.
Well, we follow these rules, and I will brag for a moment, because it wasn't planned, but I was really excited about what happened. It was during Pride Month. LinkedIn chose our LGBT advertising and marketing group to be a featured group for.
Yeah.
They said just for Pride Month, but it's continuing on today. So I don't know how long this is going to go on. But what they did is, I don't know, I couldn't tell you exactly where it showed up, but all I could tell you is that for a group that took us years to get up to 4,500 members, and it was a real group that was, we curated all the posts. So that means that they were all more specific to LGBT business and marketing, and they they liked it. And so when they promoted it, we jumped up to over 9,000 followers that month.
Wow.
So we doubled in size, and it was for a few days, it was crazy for me, because I thought, is it always going to be this way? It was like 500 new people a day, like 50 to 100, 50 to 100 new posts. So that was the crazy time. But it's settled down a little bit, but it's still going on. And then the bragging part was, then I looked yesterday to try to figure out, like, where do we stand? And so I typed in the words like gay, LGBT, LGBTQ, to see, because LinkedIn will show you all the groups rated by
Mhm.
the most
Mhm.
popular. And I think we're now number 2 on LinkedIn when it comes to an LGBT group. But the key to that, I mean, that's the part I'm very proud of that. I'm excited about it, and I thank them for choosing us for that. But the key is that when I look at other groups, and I notice like how many people are posting or engaged, it's not a numbers game so much. It's really when you follow these kind of this strategy and this style, where you treat the internet and social media and all this as like real people, and real people on the other end, and you are engaged. You're not just talking about yourself. You're you're
Mm.
you're engaged with others. Well, it changes everything, because on our group, we will not only have a large number of posts, but you'll see a lot more engagement even though we along the way we weren't the largest by far, but when you compare it to ones that are larger, they may not have anywhere near the same
Yeah.
sort of views and engagement, and that's just because they're not necessarily treating it the same way. They just might be posting things, kind of speaking at people instead of speaking with them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And it surprises me, honestly, a little bit that this is happening within your LinkedIn group because many times before that people talked about LinkedIn groups, it was all about, yeah, but that's not a good feature because that's
Yeah,
just a collection of people and nothing happens there. You're just being part of something that doesn't relate to anything. But if I see your group, indeed, it is possible as long as, like what you say, treat it as, yeah, not just a billboard, but actually where you can connect with people again, where you can talk to people, where you can share the content
yeah.
that's relevant to your audience.
Well, also LinkedIn changed their newsfeed algorithm and the programming probably like 3 months ago. So they basically just made groups more relevant. So when I was
Ah,
noticing that when people were posting in other groups, that I would start to see it on my feed. It would actually show the logo of the group and then the logo of the person together.
yeah,
But they also increase the exposure. So basically, somebody some team at LinkedIn decided that they were going to put more emphasis and make groups a stronger feature. And then then Pride Month came along and they chose us. So it was like a perfect storm.
perfect timing.
Yeah, it really was. And so we're gonna. I think by this weekend we'll be over 10,000 followers on that group, and we're getting
Well,
roughly about
let's just
50 posts a
let's
day.
just yeah, let's just say to everybody that is listening or watching the podcast, just go to the group of
Yes.
Matt, go to LinkedIn, follow. It's the Pink Media Group, right? It's about
Yeah. Well,
LGBT
it's
plus.
called it's called LGBTQ marketing and advertising and
Yeah,
media. Yeah,
there
and
we go.
because the Q
So just,
their search function isn't as good. So if you put just LGBT, it doesn't show up as easy.
okay, okay.
Yeah.
So go, everybody go there, and then Matt has his 10K users. Matt, going a little bit further away from the tactics right now, I want to talk about being part of the LGBTQ plus community
Yeah.
because it's what we are part of. It's what made your company as well. It's where you it all started for you as well, right?
Yeah.
Like if you look at the landscape today compared to what it used to be, how easy is it now for people to target our community? And is that being perceived as a good thing or a bad thing?
I think for the most part, it's a good thing. I mean, nowadays, I talk about all the great things with Twitter and LinkedIn and being engaged, but then the downside is that when people are cranky or have something to complain about, that it also gets sometimes a wider voice than it even deserves. And so what happens is that there's a lot of opinions out there now when it comes to whether it's Burger King and their ad with two top buns and two bottom buns, and some people thought that was cute and others didn't. And so you see all that and you just realize that in some ways there's a lot of right answers. It's easier for companies to choose. They have a lot of choices. Work with influencers that can help them tell their story, do more traditional advertising, or kind of just they can promote themselves and kind of be engaged with their fans and their followers and their client base. And so there's so many different right answers to choose from. And then the real question that they get, that they're held to task for is, are they only going to do it in June or are they going to do it year round?
Hmm.
And I think that's like sometimes becomes the biggest question of all.
Or what do you feel like? Because they work with you to
Yeah.
really reach our community. So do you feel like this is still a thing? Like June is there, everybody jumps on board, but then once it's done, it's done.
Yeah. But no, I would say, the way I see it, there's a lot of companies are promoting themselves year round, and they have different the different ways of doing that, especially when it comes to corporate life and the dealing with not just promoting themselves to the LGBT community, but also how they support internally with their employee resource groups, and they go to different conferences during the year to kind of support that. So there are different ways that they're visible and out there. But at the end of the day, it's the reality is that it's kind of exciting that there is so much excitement and energy in the air when it comes to June worldwide now. And that didn't used to exist a few years ago. Before there was
Mm.
no, it sort of just happened organically. There was always kind of this a lot of prides would happen in June, but all of a sudden it became from like a Pride weekend to a Pride week, and now it's like
Yeah.
the whole month is now. And I've seen an evolution. Like when I used to go to Toronto in Canada, you go there and during Pride, and it was just normal. But then over a few years, maybe 10 years ago, you started to see the banks really become involved, whether it was TD and HBSC and so forth. So when I go to Toronto, I'd see the banks all decorated on the outside of their buildings for Pride, and that became a real change. So you just started to see corporate and businesses in general just start to embrace it differently. And of course, they have a bank and others, they have a lot of other constituents that they need to
Mm.
celebrate and deal with. So the fact that they had kind of decided to give us an entire month of promotion in that sense, I looked at that as a positive. That's more of a personal
Yeah.
thing. But I do bring that into the business side when I'm working with companies, is that I do think it's a positive. And so I don't look at it quite the same way others do.
It's really an interesting point indeed, and I would agree with you if you think about it, that companies spend so much time and effort and attention to our community for a whole month, and they're leading up to that, and then they do after that still also some campaigns and so on. So we
Yeah.
should almost be really glad that they do it for more than a month almost. So yeah.
But this June was crazy. I mean, because when you're monitoring it the way I am, and especially like Twitter, more than Twitter and LinkedIn, because you're reaching,
Mm.
you're going beyond just the stuff your friends are posting. When it's Facebook, you kind of get used to the same old stuff all the time. But when I'm on LinkedIn and I see so many uh, corporate individuals posting, I mean, they're all these individuals are so excited to be a part of something. Their company is behind them, and you're
Yeah.
seeing events at the company, and you're seeing on Twitter, just I mean, there's so much it's almost for our team that we have kind of monitoring these Twitter profiles. It becomes very overwhelming. So we're
Mhm.
actually kind of glad that now it's a little quieter, but it's still going on strong. It's not that quiet.
Awesome, awesome. So I wanna open up the floor a little bit here for our live viewers and live listeners. And if you have any questions right now for Matt, now is the time to put it in comments, and then we'll put it in front of Matt. But Matt, in the meantime, for the next few months, what is in store for Pink Media?
Yeah,
What does the future hold?
yeah. Well, we feel like we have a really good, strong set path now when it comes to working with clients. What we do is we talk more about that storytelling, that they have a story to tell. Because at the end of the day, when it comes to advertising or marketing, everybody from an individual on Instagram all the way up to a company, they're all looking for attention, and they have some. And so the question becomes, to get that attention, what are you going to talk about? And
Mm.
so we spend a lot of time just working with companies to figure out what are you going to talk about, and that's what we're going to be doing. Even this summer and going into fall I'll be at a few conferences and different events where I'll be able to kind of get up there and talk to potential clients or just companies that are interested in this market. That it's really important for them to start thinking about not just throwing a banner ad out there or something, but to really start thinking about how are they going to kind of convey a story and then engage with their audience and start looking at it a little differently, because marketing has really changed, where it's much more of an engaged speaking with people than it is just advertising too. And so that's what we're going to be doing over the next few months.
Awesome. I like it. I like it. Yeah. Putting a story in front of the people. I mean, that's what's also making you unique. If you want to compare yourself with others and you
Yeah,
have a great story, that can attract a lot of people. That can relate to a lot of people.
yeah,
Yeah. So we have a question, Matt,
yeah.
from Eddie. You mentioned, Matt, Twitter a couple of times. Is Twitter still widely used? Or should we put our focus on the newer ones like TikTok or Instagram?
Well, Instagram's not newer, well, number one, I would say they're all growing. The largest is Facebook, but you can only reach a slice of the audience there. And so for most of us, Instagram is the same way. You can only reach a slice, a smaller piece of, because Instagram's number two in terms of size. Um, so when you look at it that way, you realize that if I do want to be effective on social media, I have to pay. I have to create an audience, boost the post to that audience, and pay somewhere. It's expensive now. It's not cheap like it was. Um, but when it comes to TikTok, they're really becoming, I believe, number three now in terms of, they have really exploded, and it really shows you that it's the style of content that's on TikTok that people like, which is it's entertaining, but it's informative, and there's just so much personality involved. And so it kind of in some ways brings together so much of what the others had. And TikTok does have the unique ability to allow you to reach out to other people. It's just it's not as focused. Like I would just say in general, when I'm on TikTok, I'm mostly just seeing gay stuff. So it's not like
Yeah.
seeing so much like gay travel or gay business. It's just sort of like it's not that focused when it comes to what you're
Mhm.
seeing. And so in order to be able to probably get your message out to the right audience, I believe on TikTok you'd also have to jump into their advertising system and kind of sponsor a post and pay and do the targeting. Um, but on Twitter, Twitter is also growing as the other ones are, and I know that I've actually pulled up all the stats because I was challenged at a conference recently on this, and I believe in the United States the total number of individuals just in the U.S. that are on it is about 25%, and and then when you break that down into active daily users, I believe the number of Americans that are on a daily basis was around 15%, I believe, 10 to 15%. So all those stats are there. But it's what you're always going to look for is you're going to ask yourself, what is the active daily users of any of the platforms? And then ask yourself the second question. I know how many active daily users there are. How many do I really have a potential of reaching? And sure, one could say that, with the millions on Twitter and the fact you can reach friends of friends, I'm going to reach all those millions, but we're not. None of us are all that exciting, but you do have the potential to. And we have done posts following just a basic strategy of how we post things. We have had posts that have reached 500,000 impressions and viewers. And it's really hard to get 500,000 people to see anything that we're saying unless you're paying a lot of money for it. And if I was on Facebook, Instagram, I would never have 500,000 people see it. And so it's just, and on LinkedIn, the best I've probably done is about 20 to 25,000 impressions on a post.
Wow. Look at that.
And so, but that's the best. Like that's the very best I've done.
Yeah.
So, but on Twitter, I've had 500,000 once, just once.
Jeez.
And I know and I say that, and I can tell you that there's a whole lot of people that are in our community and that have figured this out, and they have posts like that all the time. There are some very successful people out there when it comes to this technology.
So there we go. That's definitely a good tip for everybody. Don't disregard Twitter for
Yeah.
sure and LinkedIn. There's another question here. How do we ask a question? Well, just put it in comments and we put that on the screen then and then we can talk about it. So if you have a question still, just put it in comments wherever you're watching, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, put it in comments and we'll put it on screen for everybody to see. Matt, before we head off here,
Yeah.
if there's no other questions coming in, I always end the episode with one last question.
Uh-oh.
And yeah, and that is, what does success mean to you?
Ah. Well, it's funny because I keep emphasizing the fact that now I'm in my mid 50s. So I say that because it gives me a perspective of all these years of building the business and where I'm at today. People think a lot of it's not about the money. It's interesting. I think if you're succeeding at what you're doing and what you love, the money follows. And so I enjoy making money and having enough money not to worry about things. But success for me is having an idea or having it's for the entrepreneur. It's not just a dream, but it's just you think you have something that could really resonate, and then having the opportunity to really get it out there and test out and find out do people really like the crazy thoughts that are going on in my head when it comes to a product or service. And then from that, when you can, if and when you can turn that into a success where people are talking about you, people are, you're not talking about yourself, but others talk about what the work you're doing, and you're growing and you're reaching kind of those goals of what you wanted in the business. To me, that's just, that all kind of comes together as a definition of success. And I will just end that by saying that if on Sunday night you're watching television and you're thinking to yourself, if you have dread that Monday tomorrow is like the start of the work week, then you really should think about doing something else. Because I think a little part of success professionally and personally is when on Sunday night you're excited. You can't wait to like jump into it on Monday for another week.
Beautiful. I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. Matt, we have two more questions. Let's
Yeah,
put them quickly on screen here. A question is, has your company worked with any LGBTQ plus apps?
yeah. We've you're gonna laugh, but we were actually we worked with Grinder at the very beginning because I knew the founders, and so it's a little different. We used to work with the app. We worked with Grinder to help. We were doing some of their very first ad sales.
Oh,
Um,
really?
yeah, it wasn't a great marriage, and it wasn't
Yeah.
meant to be. So that didn't last long. But other than that, we have worked with other apps to promote themselves. It's tricky. A lot of the apps are other ones that also that focus on matchmaking or meeting. And the trick is that no other app, Grindr, Scruff, or any of the rest, will ever accept advertising from another app that wants to promote similar things of meeting.
Yeah.
So it's very tricky. That means that most of our advertising has to be on the mobile optimized versions of websites, like whether it's the Advocate or QueerT. We can run ads and do things on their mobile optimized, and we could run ads, and we could also reach LGBT people on other apps that are not these hookup apps and meeting.
Yeah.
But it's trickier. It's a little more difficult because that's obviously the best audience is sitting right
Yeah.
there on these things. But we're limited for what we're able to how we're able to promote those.
Cool. Another question, last question. Would you recommend that we boost our posts? What's your experience in terms of ROI?
We've had amazing ROI with some posts, but yeah, don't just boost the post. Facebook started, and I don't even know today if it's still the same thing. You have your business page, and it says boost post. You click it, you give it $100, and it just promotes it. They said to the followers of your page, but it also would promote it to other people as well. So when you do that in the early days, you would get all sorts of terrible comments from people that didn't want to see that boosted post. The real answer is you use Facebook's audience manager, and then you go there, you create an audience, very target, like you say, I'm specifically trying to reach LGBT travelers who have shown an interest in this type of travel or this destination. You can really narrow down that audience in a wide variety of different industries. And then you boost the post to that audience. And from that, we have had just the performance of like spending $500 on one of those. We have had, for any $500 post, we usually get about minimum 1,000 click-throughs, and for many others even more. It's when you target it just right, the performance is very strong. But that's why also Facebook's become more expensive nowadays. But the performance is very strong, and the question then becomes, you as the advertiser, can you convert those 1,000 or 2,000 clicks into something meaningful? Whether is your ROI just capturing an email address, or was it a sale of a service or a product? And so then we have had really good ROI. It just is always dependent on, it varies so strongly based on the different clients that we have out there.
Awesome. Perfect answers, Matt. Thank you very much. Matt, where can they find you? Where should they go?
It's real simple. I mean, just pinkmedia.lgbt is always a good start.
Yeah.
And then also you can find us at that one. Yep.
There you go.
And that
LGBT.
Yeah, and from there that launches into everything we do, and that's also very easy to find on social media on all the platforms.
Perfect. Matt, I'm grateful that you're here. Thank you so much for your time, your advice, your tips, your tricks. And yeah, I would love to catch up with you later this year, maybe, or next year, maybe for Pride Month again, that we can talk about where and not sure what just happened, but okay. I think it's a sign that we have to end it right here. So thank you everybody for watching, for listening. If you have any more questions, put them in comments. I'll get back to that. And don't forget technology.world. If you want to know more about technology, we have our online platform, the community. And next week we have another podcast, and I'll tell you about that more this week. Anyway, thank you again. Thank you, Matt. Have a great evening. Have a great day. I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.